Welcome to Food Freedom Radio. I'm Laura Hedlund, a student of permaculture, a person who knows cheap food is not cheap, and a person who recently learned about beer-finished beef. Hunter, you're behind the mic. Have you ever heard of beer-finished beef?
Beer-finished beef? No, I haven't heard of that.
You haven't? So you can learn all about beer-finished beef today.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Yeah, we're going to talk about grass-fed, beer-fed. And in studio with us, we have rancher Frederick LaRoche, and we also have Kai Samajima, and she's the executive director of the Minneapolis Climate Action Center. Minneapolis Climate Action. Welcome to Food Freedom Radio.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tell us about yourself, Frederick.
Well, I'm 36, and I'm youngest of three boys. Grew up on the Lord Sioux Indian Reservation in central South Dakota. I'm a second-generation rancher. My dad started 40 years ago, and now I'm here. Yeah, so I don't know how depth you want me to get into it.
We're going to get in. We have a whole show, but so a second generation rancher, in South Dakota.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
And Kyle?
Yeah, so I am Kyle Samajima, and the executive director of Minneapolis Climate Action, and I met Fred at Standing Rock 3 years ago now, and had gone out with my daughter, Sora, and we had gone out after seeing some people speak at the American Indian Center, and they were asking for support and allies, so my daughter and I made the trek out there, and it was a transformative experience, and we went out there to be supportive, and instead were supported, welcomed the whole time. And Fred and some of his friends were, how can we help? What do you need? Come sit by our fire. Come eat with us. And we just felt like we came into a family. And it was a remarkable experience all around in a situation that had lots of, and still has lots of painful parts and lots of, I think, healing aspects of it and strength. I think there was an amazing beauty of what was happening out there as well, and it was historical. From what I could see from a white person's perspective out there, it was historical for the tribes, too, to gather that way.
Yeah, so tell us about your experience at Standing Rock.
When it all started, it was like quick. Like I was telling you earlier, my friend Lucas and his older brother were a big part of the movement, and they had called me, letting me know if go up there, like Kyle said, for source support, and being I feel like I was blessed with the parents that I have, and they've been able to give me opportunities in situations. So now I feel like it's my humane duty to help when I can. So I would, I'd get up there as much as I could in the fall of 16, and I'd haul up anything from hay to, they started a school come that fall. So I remember going to the electric telephone company and getting these tables. Well, they had rolls of wire on them, but they were 6 feet in diameter. So I thought, hey, there's some tables right there, and I hauled them up and do everything I could. And it was just a really spiritual, heavy movement, and it definitely changed me for sure for the rest of my life.
Tell us about the place. How far is your ranch from Standing Rock? And
I believe it was a 5-hour drive. Oh. I think the highways kind of skirt along the Missouri River up all the way up there. So about 5 hours. About the same drive as here.
It's a long drive.
I mean, not too bad. Not too bad.
So I want to talk more about Standing Rock, but I want to also get a sense of the role of the rancher and how you grew up and what this way of, because we want to get into grass-fed beef, and we kind of teased about the beer finishing. So let's learn a little bit about how you grew up.
Okay. Like I said, I'm the youngest of three boys. My mom has always been in like finance and like the BIE Realty. My dad grew up. My grandparents on my dad's side died when he was young, so he was raised through his two uncles, and that's how he got started in the cowboy business, if you will. And he's what I say is a last of the dying breed. Like grew up, in like old Western ways, kind of. So he got the opportunity to buy leases when he was about 19. Not buy leases, but put in a bid for them. So he got the leases, started out ranching, was able to get some help from his uncle, and then eventually took on my great uncle, I guess, passed away. And so then my dad just started ranching for himself, and he would help my uncle. And Ohunkawe and Lakota Way, he would be my grandfather as well, because he's my grandmother's brother. Mm-hmm. So then just grew up chasing cows and going through that ordeal. And when I turned 18, I couldn't get away fast enough, because I grew up, like just working and had an amazing childhood. My parents worked very hard for us boys and to make sure that we had everything we needed, and taught us that the things that we want, we got to work for. And so I'm really thankful for that upbringing. And then moved away, was fighting wildland fire for a while, got out of that. I did that over several years, pretty intensely. And then I got out of that, and I actually went through a breakup, and I ended up in California on a ski resort, was out there for a couple years, came home after I fell in love with bow hunting, and knew that there's no other place, like, for me anyway, at home on the res to hunt anywhere else in the world. Excuse me. And so I wanted to come back and work with my dad before he was, too old to be out there and do a so to speak, young man's full day's work, which I was telling Kyle on the way over, that he still does. He can still outwork me to this day, and I'm, half his age. But I started noticing and picking up, and getting more mentally aware of the markets and where beef was and where it was going to go. And I remember, to this day, the exact day when I started asking our vet at the time, who was certified, and I'm sure she still is today, Julie Williams, I believe was her name. And I started asking her, what's the difference between commercial and or organic and non-organic? And then so she, was telling me about the criterias, and whatever. And then I got to thinking, I thought, well, shit, we're doing that, So I looked at my dad, and I'm like, why ain't we doing organic beef?
I'm already doing organic beef. How do we label it as organic beef, right?
Yeah.
How do we get a little extra money? Because it should be organic beef, because that's what we're doing.
Sadly, that was money was the factor that kind of sparked my interest then, but now it's more to spread the word that not all red meat is bad. I mean, that's red meat in general is getting bashed, any chance anybody can get, and it's like, hey, it's not all bad. It's commercial beef, you buy a patty from, not knocking McDonald's because I eat McDonald's too, but buying a beef patty from McDonald's, you don't know what you're getting, so.
Well, and let's get into this really complicated conversation, because there's a lot of confusing information out there right now about beef. Clearly, beef is a major driver of climate change right now. Kyle?
Yes, it is, as well as conventional agriculture of commodity crops, things like soybeans and corn, also have a major impact, as well as other conventionally grown vegetables. There was just a report that came out on kale, and if it's not organically grown, it's really pesticide intensive. And so there isn't a simple answer to any of this. A lot of it is knowing the source of our food, understanding how our food system, where it works well and where it's broken, which is, in many areas. I mean, I just found out recently that if you raise vegetables, you can't get crop insurance. That to me is crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it?
You can if you raise soybeans and corn as commodity crops, but not for vegetables.
Yeah, it is. That is absolutely. There's so much of this food system that's crazy, but I want to connect the deeper lessons of Standing Rock with the deeper lessons of how we look at the pain of the food system, be present to the pain of the food system, but also find this. Find this honoring of the ancestors is the best way I can think of to really create something that we want for future generations. And that's what you're doing. And so we want to get into all the challenges that you have trying to do the grass-fed. But so for people who are not aware, how does cattle ranching work in South Dakota right now? How has it worked for you and your dad?
Well, the cattle business there's different levels, if you will. We're a cow-calf operation, so we're breeding. We have breeding stock. We breed them. They calve out, and we typically try to account for about no more than a 10% death loss. And so for us, we take our calves when they're about 500-600 pounds, and we take them to market. And even though I sell drug-free cattle in the market, they can still end up in a feedlot somewhere.
Right. So we're learning all about cattle, grass-fed cattle, and how do we build something we want for future generations, honoring water, soil, and all life. You're listening to Food Freedom Radio.
It's plain to see the love lights go now.
Hi, Matt McNeil for Rudy Luther Toyota. Let me tell you about the best parts of buying a vehicle with Rudy Luther. First, their staff is wonderful, friendly, and always ready to help. Another is the Luther Advantage Card. With every new and used vehicle purchase, you'll get 3 years of 10 cents off per gallon of gas at holiday station stores, as well as discounted car washes. The Luther Advantage Card keeps you happy in your Rudy Luther vehicle. Find out more at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Catch New Beginnings with Freddie Bell, Saturdays at 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Save an extra 7.5% during Warner Stellian's free tax rebate event. Choose from the best brands at our guaranteed unbeatable price. Then save 7.5% more with our exclusive tax rebates. You'll save hundreds on laundry pairs, dishwashers, refrigerators, and kitchen suites. And trusted fast free delivery and haul away are still free. Plus, qualified buyers can choose 18 months interest-free financing. Guaranteed unbeatable appliance savings through March 25th with exclusive tax rebates from Warner Stellian.
Habitation Furnishing and Design is simply the best furniture design studio in the Twin Cities. What is a furniture design studio? It's a place where you'll find professional interior designers who are there to help you select the perfect furniture. A single sofa or an entire home. Our designers love making spaces exceptional. When you're shopping for furniture, it makes sense to talk to a professional. Habitation Furnishing and Design, 4317 Excelsior Boulevard in St. Louis Park.
This is Ellie Krug from Ellie 2.0 Radio on Mondays from 7 to 8 a.m. Many listeners know that I founded Human Inspiration Works, LLC, which trains on human inclusivity and on how to be welcoming to diverse humans. Today, organizations of all sizes find that they need to train team members on diversity and inclusion. I can do that. Many say that my trainings change the way they see the world. I'd love to help make your organization more welcoming. For more information, go to humaninspirationworks.com. Thank you.
Oh no, you shattered your cell phone. Now what? Listen closely. We know you're lost without your phone. Bring it to Computer Revolution today. We'll fix it and have you back online before someone asks, "Where are you?" Computer Revolution with cell phone repair has over 18 years experience fixing computer devices, all brands, all carriers. Computer Revolution with cell phone repair, located in Roseville at Highway 36 and Fairview Avenue, or call 651-633-6600. We fix phones, same day, 7 days a week.
welcome back to Food Freedom Radio. I'm Laura Hedlund, and we're talking all about grass-fed beef and cattle ranching. In studio with us is the Executive Director of Minneapolis Climate Action, Kyle Samajima, and rancher Frederick LaRoche. And before we were on break, you were talking about how does standard cattle operations, you're your second-generation rancher. Your dad, you described your dad as like one of the old cowboys. So how does it work?
We, like I said, we're a cow-calf operation. We raise the cattle up to the calves till they're about 500 pounds, take them to market. And that's something I realized, several years back that I wanted to get away from that. And because where I felt, and to no fault to nobody's, that's just what people did, and up till today, commercial ranching is real, and me and Kyle were talking on the way over here. It's hard for us little guys, like it might seem like a lot, me having 150 head of cattle, but in the ranching world, it's not a lot.
So you have 150 cattle. What are most cattle operations like?
Well, there's operations over here in the Midwest up to 2,500 head herd. For one ranch. And so it's this journey that I've been trying to make myself stand out, not only for economical reasons, or I should say financial reasons, but I don't want to be in that realm of just my cattle getting lost in the sauce, if you will. And so I really thought, hey, how can I really get, my cattle from farm to table? And so I reached out to Kyle and helped me share my story.
Yeah, I think at Minneapolis Climate Action, we understand the connection between agriculture, climate change, healthy soil. Agriculture accounts for, and this is including, cropland and pasture land, and I'm going to specify mainly the conventional industrial scale operations, whether cropland or pasture land, that emit more greenhouse gases than cars, trucks, and planes combined. Mm-hmm. And so it is a huge factor. Healthy soil can sequester carbon, and so it's an absolute issue around not only our health, but the health of the planet, for sure.
The industrial monoculture system, especially when it comes to beef worldwide, the system has been cutting down rainforest to have beef operations in other countries in areas that were previously rainforest, which has a huge, huge carbon footprint and water footprint, but none of those externalities are ever accounted for in the system. So, so the industrial beef, like you say, you're buying it at, whatever fast food restaurants or in the large grocery chains, you don't really know where that meat comes from. Mm-hmm. And so you and your family and your second generation, you're trying to forge something new and different. Yeah. And here's where we can talk about beer-finished grass-fed food.
And this journey for me personally hasn't been easy because my dad's ranching for the last 40 years, and he knows what works, and he knows what he's done. And so it's taken me a while to really get him on board of changing the system. Because that kind of spooks him. He's in his ways and everything, but he's definitely catching on. So
how are you changing the system?
Our system is I've implemented. We're working with NRCS program. It's a Natural Resource Conservation Service. It's an agency within the United States Department of Agriculture, and I work with a great guy named Daryl, and he's helped me set up some water lines to help pull cattle up off like the creeks and the natural waterways, and for one, to lessen the impact of erosion, and two, just to keep their byproducts out of the water system. So then we've been doing also is cattle rotation, where they call it extreme cattle rotation, where you have smaller pastures and you move more often, because the grass will, there's different, with the plant diversity, cows and calves will graze on certain grasses certain times of the year. So if you're rotating more often, they're having less impact on the grass, and then when they come back around, let's say 2 months later, they'll start eating a different vegetation. So those are just two small things that I've been trying to do to help less my carbon footprint, if you will.
And those are the things, the proper soil management that a lot of agencies have saying that we really got to improve those general practices.
Yep.
So then tell us but then are you able to, the other thing that's been hard is to try to find the markets for the grass-fed beef, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the big challenges you have right now.
Yes, ma'am. And in order just to pay my bills, I go to a commercial market, if you will. But so far it's just been, word of mouth, family and friends, and I figure, definitely with what Kyle's doing, I think that's the best thing, is just helping people be aware, so.
Right. And the food system, should be set up more specifically to help operations like Fred's that are trying to do the right thing, and then costs end up being a barrier to either getting certified organic or putting things in place that would truly, help sequester more carbon, create healthy soil, allow him to, graze his cattle the way that he needs to. And it's the same with, if you're raising vegetables and can't get crop insurance. I mean, there's a reason, I'm sure you've talked about many times, Laura, that cheap food is cheap. And they, the subsidies that come for larger operations, and it's not fair, and that's the system part that should change and that we can work for.
And then we have to, and is that one of the lessons of Standing Rock, is that even though it doesn't feel like it all the time, we really do have power, that we do have power to change the system.
For sure. And I think to continue to spread awareness, I think in the years to come, we can make a change, whether that be, making people aware that, hey, there is a guy 30 miles from you that raises beef. Go ask him, say, hey, can I buy one of your beef? You know what I mean? So one of my goals is to just make people aware that they should know where their food comes from, whether it be vegetables or red meat.
And to me, as a, white person coming from a white lens, in looking at these things, but of course trying to expand my lens, the intersection of colonization and dominance over land and capitalism, it's very clear why we're at the place we're at with climate change, with Standing Rock. They all go together. And if we can get, and I believe we do have the power. I'm a stubborn optimist. I do believe we have the power.
Stubborn optimists unite! Stubborn optimists unite! You're listening to Food Freedom Radio on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. A long line of stubborn optimists.
My name's Michaela. I joined the Army at 17. When I got back from Iraq a few years ago, I became pregnant and ended up homeless.
No veteran should ever face homelessness. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is working hard to end veteran homelessness by the end of 2015. VA offers programs to help eligible veterans stay healthy, find a job, and secure or maintain safe, stable housing. With a simple call to 877-424-3838, specialists can connect veterans to the services and support they have earned, regardless of their branch or era of service.
My life works now. I got help from VA, and now I'm on a mission to share these resources.
VA is here to help. If you or a veteran you know is homeless or at immediate risk of becoming homeless, call 877-424-3838 or chat online at va.gov/homeless.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hello, fellow AM 950 listeners. This is Jaja from Nightingale at 26 in Lindale. Come experience our delicious signature dishes and exciting rotation of inventive seasonal fare from my wife and chef, Carrie, and her team. Nightingale is the perfect place to gather for any occasion, with our extensive wine, beer, and cocktail selection, along with our dedication to great service. We offer a full menu every day from 4 to 1 a.m., 2 award-winning daily happy hours, and weekend brunch at 10. More at nightingalempls.com.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our new show airing on Saturdays from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights to living and aging well. Each week, we provide answers to important questions regarding health care, elder care, end-of-life care, and caregiver support to help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
Seward Co-op, serving the community for nearly 45 years, invites you to shop their 2 convenient locations, both offering the strong commitment to local producers and healthy foods you've come to expect. Seward focuses on locally grown and raised products, fair trade, and environmental sustainability. Shop their selection of meats, artisan cheeses, and house-made baked goods. Find Seward at 2823 East Franklin Avenue or the Friendship Store on 38th Street and 3rd Avenue in Minneapolis. More at seward.coop.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Hunter Haas. Saturday sunny with a high near 58. Sunday chance of rain with a high near 50. And Monday sunny with a high near 42.
This week's EatLocalMinnesota.com restaurant of the week is Victor's 1959 Cafe. They're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, offering traditional Cuban recipes in a relaxed, casual, and festive Cuban environment. Located at 3756 Grand Avenue in South Minneapolis. Details at EatLocalMinnesota.com.
So welcome back to Food Freedom Radio, where we plant and nourish the seeds of change. I'm Laura Hedlund, and we are talking today about beef. Where's the beef? And we're going to figure out where the beef is. In studio with us is rancher Frederick LaRoche, and Executive Director of Minneapolis Climate Action, Kyle Samogina. And when we were on break, we had this. We ended it with a really bright note that we're part of stubborn optimists. So what do we mean by that, stubborn optimist?
Well, I feel like, for me personally, that, I don't have a market for my beef, but I'm stubbornly optimistic that this is where the future of beef is going to be. I've been telling people this for about a year now. I had this epiphany. I was living in Denver a few years back for some side work and then working for my cousin in the construction business. Well, I got to thinking, this... people, that are turning to veganism, whatever, it's the movement, the green movement, if you will, is a good thing. People are starting to be more aware of what they're eating. I think that we can still be even more aware from there. But I realized that in 20 years from now, I truly believe there's going to be 2 levels of beef. You're going to get fast food grade meat, or you're going to get high-end meat. There's not going to be no in between. And so I think that would be my stubborn optimism is I'm going to change the beef industry by one little Indian boy from the res from South Dakota. So that's my optimism.
And why shouldn't it start with you, Fred? Yeah. I think that's absolutely a thing. And I know some people might think it's strange that a director of an organization focused on climate change is talking about beef, period, because of all the news about the impact of industrially raised beef. But I think the reason is that food systems that focus on closed-loop systems of farms that have crops and animals, which is the way most farming used to be, if we push the system. And I believe, as the stubborn optimist, that our choices as citizens, I don't call myself a consumer, I'm a citizen. My choice as a citizen of where I choose to spend my money, the choices have impact. When I choose to go to my farmer's market and look my farmer in the eye, and maybe I'm paying $2 more a pound for that beef, and I make a conscious choice to fit that into my budget, which is not a large budget. I agree that there are very real, confines on people's budgets and the money they have to spend on food, and yet we're paying for that cheap food, just not at the cash register.
And I've got a lot of information about the environmental stuff. I mean, lentils are still better for the environment. So if people can eat some more lentils, and then if you're going to eat beef, make sure the beef, the beef, or whatever animals that we also try to be considerate of the soil impacts and the impacts on water. Large feedlot operations are terrible for water. They just are. Whereas small grass-fed ones, and in the other section you were talking about how you were working to make sure that the creek was protected from the offsets. So, but I want to, before I forget, okay, so what, I don't want to leave it and not mention this. What is beer-finished grass-fed beef?
So I read a while back, and some of the Wagyu Kobe beef out of Japan, they put their, their malt beer in with their grain. And to me, that was like, okay, that's probably, you drink a lot of beer, you get a beer belly, so to speak, air quotes. And so I thought, well, shoot, if they're doing it in Japan, why can't we do it in South Dakota? And so I went and bought the cheapest beer I could find. That was not a light beer, and which happened to be Hams, and it was on sale. And I'd be coming out of the grocery store with 6 cases of Hams, 30 packs. People like, what are you doing with all that beer? I'm like, feeding it to my cows, and they'd turn their head, So, but what I read was they were giving them about 40 ounces of beer, so I kind of did the math, and I think it was a little over. So I was feeding out 2 cows at the time and finishing them. And, I just mixed the beer in. And at first, they kind of turned their nose up to it. But I put it in this, different feeder that they weren't used to. And so I'm like, oh, bummed, they're not going to eat it. And then I go throw it in the regular feeder, and they just clean it up. So
do they seem like they really like the beer finished?
They would lick the bottom of the bottom of the feeder till it was clean. So, yeah, I'd say they did like it. And did you get my picture I sent you, the marbling of that steak? Yeah. And I figure, that definitely added to the marbling.
Right, because some people don't like grass-fed because it's considered dry. So when you do the beer at the end.
Yep. I figure the way I want to do it is give the citizen the option of how they want it. I prefer my personal beef, raised up, grass-fed, no antibiotics, no hormones. I like to finish them on corn and now, of course, the beer, just because that puts a little fat on the end and it puts a lot of flavor in the beef, you know what I mean? So just because I do it doesn't mean, obviously, people can get it grass-fed, and that's definitely because it's a lot leaner. But to me, it doesn't have, as much natural flavor, so
you have a 150 cattle operation in South Dakota, but most of yours now still, most of the cattle you have, you still rely on the industrial system to sell it.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain how that works.
Well, when I was fortunate to have my dad still in business, after 20, 30 years at the time. And so when I started, I had a lot of overhead. I purposely wanted that, because I didn't have to spend money on hay ground or fuel or anything. So I was able to buy as many cows as I could, and I also bought some updated our equipment. And so I had a big overhead, and by just selling a handful of beef every year to family and friends, that won't pay my bills. So I don't want to say forced, but the cattle business is just that. There's people want their beef, and it has to be, there's to me, there at this point there has to be a market or a commercial market or industrial market, if you will, to meet those demands of all the beef.
So what that means is that of the 150 cattle you have, a big bulk of them you send to someone else for what's called finishing. What does that mean? So they have to go from your farm to a feedlot.
Yep. So we'll take them from, every year, roughly around November, December, we'll take our calves. And let's say that year we have 120. Well, I on a typical year, I like to keep 20 back and raise my own replacements. So then I know where them cows are coming from. And years down the road, when I'm breeding cattle, I know where that cow came from. Now I'm getting calves out of her. You know what I mean? So to me, it kind of keeps that pureness, if you will, of grass-fed. And again, I'm not certified organic. I haven't had the market to do that. And we've been talking. There's a lot of people who opt out of it just because of certain things. You get into legalities when you do that. So
and that's why this is an important conversation to have. We can come in. Is that so? Your dream is to be 100% grass-fed, right?
Yes, ma'am. My dream is to not take any cattle to a livestock or sale barn, and to be able to essentially butcher them myself, and so people can come visit me, call. I can take pictures, in a sense, but I want people to know their beef before they even buy it from me. You know what I mean? If I should be fortunate enough. Because again, that's my stubborn optimism is to say, hey, not all red meat is bad.
Right. And we have put this in the context of the Indian reservations and the horrid history we have in this country. I got these statistics from a report called prosperitynow.org. But South Dakota is home to 9 Indian reservations, and natives compose about 10% of the state's population. But the median income for white non-Hispanic households was $48,144, whereas for Native Americans it's $22,170. So there's a lot of barriers to entrepreneurship in indigenous country.
Yes, ma'am. There's like you were talking earlier. There's lack of resources, and there's not a lot of opportunity. So, like my brother, as well as Kyle, are Minnesota alumni and Gophers, and for him, when he left, he graduated high school. 2 weeks after that, he left, and he's never lived that back at home. But even growing up with what I call blessed, my parents, and having both parents in our lives still to this day, he still had that, I want to go home where it's comfortable. And you see a lot of that on the res. And sadly, there's not a lot of youth that have the support system that I was so lucky and blessed with. And I think that's what, keeps a lot of kids from going out and then coming back, because no one's telling them, hey, it's okay. It's going to be hard. It's going to be, a rocky road. And if you push through it, there's, beautiful things at the end.
The beautiful things. And again, I'm thinking about Standing Rock, because that was a beautiful thing, and it was a reassuring thing. Or what was Standing Rock to you?
To me, Standing Rock was, I know I'm going to get my numbers wrong. Was it 150 years? 50 years? I can't remember. It was a long time. I think it was 150 years since the Ochete Shakoi has come together like that. So I believe there was 7 bands in the. Mm-hmm. I'm like a nerd.
No, that's fine.
I should have done my homework on that.
No worries.
But it was to me. That's what Standing Rock was to me. It was the the straw that broke the camel's back, in a sense. I think that brought all of Indian country globally. All indigenous people to be like, hey, we got to start standing up for ourselves. We got to start. Even if we may not win this battle, maybe we can win the war. And so I think a lot of it again, it brought Indian country together, and I feel people are still empowered by that, even 3 years later.
Right. And I think a lot of, what colonization ended up doing was intentionally and unintentionally, but probably intentionally, in the majority, dividing Indian communities and dividing communities. And we see the results of that, today. And it really was, I feel so honored to have experienced watching, in my time at Standing Rock, this historic moment, for, the Indian tribes that were there. It was truly, truly beautiful to watch on so many levels.
For sure.
Yeah, and on so many levels, having the global connection to the food, clean water, living soil, respectful relationships with all life, that is our birthright. And that springs from that, our stubborn optimism.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're listening to Food Freedom Radio, the Progressive Voice, Minnesota.
Tap, taste, and treasure at Vinaigrette, where we have some warm seasonal recipes all ready to create dynamite meals. Our fig balsamic vinegar pairs perfectly with roasted Brussels sprouts or baked brie. And sweet potatoes are always a winner, but never more than when they're roasted with a drizzle of vinaigrette cinnamon or orange-fused extra virgin olive oil on top. Come in today for more custom-crafted food and cocktail recipes at Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in Minneapolis and 287 Water Street in downtown Excelsior. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
Supporting the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities has never been easier. You'll find an expansive list of local dining options at eatlocalminnesota.com, from classic American comfort food to authentic flavors from around the world. Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts. Stop in the wine bar and enjoy a unique pizza loaded with fresh vegetables and perfectly roasted meats. Over 30 wines by the glass, Cafe Latte highlights Washington State wines and is the perfect destination for date night or an evening with friends. 850 Grand Avenue, St. Paul. Victor's 1959 Cafe has been serving South Minneapolis traditional Cuban food for over 15 years. Victor's is open for breakfast and lunch daily and now accepts dinner reservations too. Stop in and try the Pollo Tropicale or the Sandwich Cubano, which was featured on Food Network. More at eatlocalminnesota.com.
Native Roots Radio is proud to announce we've added an extra hour.
Yeah, Chushke, 1 hour goes by too fast.
That's right, Uncle Curtis.
I'll have extra time to share important information about our secret animals.
And report national and native news from all over the country and Canada.
This new hour is sponsored by Robbins Kaplan LLP, dedicated to redefining excellence for high-stakes litigation representation in Indian country.
We are awake.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM 950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
Don't let me down.
Welcome back to Food Freedom Radio, where we plant to nourish the seeds of change. I'm Laura Hedlund. In studio is a second-generation rancher, Frederick LaRush, and he's a Lakota, and Kyle Samajima. She's the exec director of Minneapolis Climate Action. And again, the two of you met at Standing Rock, and I just keep going back to that. And so you want to talk about how the food was done at Standing Rock?
So one of the first things after Fred and some of his friends helped my daughter and me settle in, pulled up right away. What do you need? How can we help? Got our tent set up in the prairie wind, and then figured out how can we help, and went up to the kitchen. And there was an amazing woman, Tink, who put out meals with volunteer help 3 times a day for hundreds of people. And a couple of my favorite moments were walking out behind the makeshift kitchen, and there was a quarter of a steer on a plastic table, and that was being, butchered out in the back, and it went in the stew for the night, and it was just this magical meal. And of course that wasn't according to any health and safety regulations, right? And yet it was this incredible meal that all donated food, and just all people just managed to come together and feed this community that was growing daily with what was in front of us. It was amazing to watch.
Given the runaway inequities, the epidemic of anxiety and depression, the climate chaos, do we need this sense of unity now?
Oh, for sure. I think more than ever. I'm no scientist, and I'm definitely never not the smartest guy in the room, but I remember hearing studies where we're projected on the path we're going on now. If we continue on this path, we're going to run out of food by 2050. And didn't we just surpass something with carbon to where we're it's almost no reversing it now, or something like that? So I figure,
well, we're years behind in addressing the problem.
I figure now is the time to unify and come together and start having these discussions about our food and the impact we're having on the environment, because it's sad. You know what I mean? I've always dreamed as a little boy to someday go to Australia and see the Great Barrier Reef. And when I heard it on the news that it's, there's so much of it that's already died, it's really heartbreaking to be like, wow, we've done this in the last 100 years, Yeah,
these stories are heartbreaking, and yet, my goal, and I know the goal of a lot of environmental organizations and social and racial justice organizations, are that we can come out the other side of this with a better society, where people are connected to their food and have access to healthy food, and are connected to their energy sources and can tap into a community solar garden and understand what community really means. Because I don't think we severed or broke the relationship with nature, but we sure have to take a deeper look at it. And I often go back to the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Kimmerer, which is an amazing foundational book for me in relating to the earth, and that earth can be asking us for relationship as well. It is reciprocal.
It is reciprocal. And just one of the little tidbits, because I love that book as well, is it's almost like we live in colonial world or noun world. Our language is predominantly noun, and like we're nouning each other. Like, you're the loser, you're the winner. It's like, that's silly. We're all, I mean, would we treat our dogs as bad as we treat each other? But one of the things that Robin mentions in that book is that Saturday in her language was a verb. It wasn't a noun. So, I mean, it's this really how to come alive.
Right. And the word for bay, is a verb. You can bay. Not bay like a dog, but the water body, and she actually came up with a new pronoun for our non-human relatives, Ki. And I just heard her speak a few weeks ago, and I really think that can help bring us back into those relationships instead of calling, another living thing it.
I totally agree with you. I mean, in fact, I knew this 7-year-old was like, nouns, person, place, or thing. This means that my dog's a thing and I'm a person. That doesn't make any sense. So we only have 3 minutes left on the show, and it's probably important. Most of you probably know this, but grass-fed clearly has stronger health benefits than conventional meat. The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid, it has higher level of vitamin E, better B vitamins, so it's much healthier. It also has a much lower risk of disease, less salmonella. So we know grass-fed beef is good. I've heard that there's just not enough land for grass-fed beef. So again, a lot of it has to do with if you're going to eat meat, limit the meat, make sure you're eating quality, and bring in more plant-based food. But then one of the big things that Frederick LaRouche, you want to also work on adjusting the markets so that the markets, we want to humanize these markets.
Well, I think, like I said, in the future, we're going to have two, to me, in my opinion, there's going to be 2 levels of beef. You're going to get fast food grade, or you're going to get high-end quality. And one thing I want to, like I said before, is just make people aware where their food comes from. And not just beef, but, everything we eat, where does it come from? And, the more natural it is, the better for our bodies. Because with the epidemic of anxiety, depression, I'm sure all these chemicals over the short last 80 years has an impact.
Yeah. I was talking to someone that was really interested in the book Silent Spring, which started, and he read it, which was written in 1962. And he said at that time cancer rates were 3 in 100. Now they're like 1 in 3. So the incredible increase in cancer and all these types of things, a lot of it could be not living in connection with nature, but having a chemical approach to life.
Right. And I know that there's a lot of talk about, feeding 9 billion people, and that we've got to have, big feedlots and conventional agriculture in order to do that. And there's just too much research that refutes that we can feed the world on smaller scale farms. Yes, we should eat less meat in America, especially, and we look at developing countries, but that
we have this incredibly invasive project of grass. Grass is invasive, and it takes a lot of water, and it uses a lot of chemicals.
You mean, right?
I mean lawns. If we just got rid of lawns, we could all eat. And we'd probably save the rusty bee at the same time. So
I'd rather garden than mow a lawn. So.
I like that. Rather garden. Down to the last minute, how can people get more information?
I'm on Instagram under Bo Hunta Sucka, and also LaRouche Ranch. And I'm starting to make that more information on there. Otherwise, you can contact Kyle, and she can line you up with me and give you my information.
Okay, and Kyle?
You can contact me at Kyle, Kyle, at MPLSClimate.org, Kyle at MPLSclimate.org, and I'd be glad to answer questions, connect you to Fred.
All right, great. Well, I thank you both so much for being in here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your work, and stubborn optimist. I love that. I'm going to go out with that. Stubborn optimist. Stubborn optimist. It's okay. As long as we keep that stubbornness alive, right? We've been listening to Food Freedom Radio and AM 950, The Progressive Voice.